Hello, I'm Grunkle Rex from the Tylee and JJ Silver Linings podcast. I'm here with a couple of obvious confessions for you and also to announce a new feature in our podcast to complement what we're doing already. The first obvious confession is that many of you know more details about this case than Adam and I do. And there are a few reasons for that. It's mostly because you've been more dedicated to following and getting the details. We have been hit or miss over the last few years, not because we aren't interested, certainly, but because sometimes we just can't get enough and we're getting all the details we can and we're processing them like you are. And we're trying to find out everything we can. And other times it's just too heavy. And we have to care for our mental health and mental health of people in our family. And so we detach for a while. And so during those times, we miss out on a lot of discussion and a lot of details. And so when we're doing the podcast, we make some mistakes. And we apologize for that. And we will correct them as we make them. You're very good about calling us out on those mistakes. For example, we said something about Brandon Boudreau encouraging Kay to call for the welfare check of Tylee and JJ. And Kay called us and pointed out to us she didn't need any assistance. She didn't need any pushing to call for that welfare check. She did that on her own. And they're both wonderful people, Kay, Larry, and Brandon. And Brandon was voicing early his concern about where the children are. So the only harm in that is us getting that wrong and giving the impression that Kay needed encouragement. But things like that, we will come clean. So please continue commenting. Please continue calling us out. And we'll get more things wrong. So you'll probably have more opportunities. We appreciate you having those details and being so engaged in this cause of finding justice for the victims in these cases, especially for Tylee and JJ and Tammy and Charles. Now, we aren't going to comment on everything, although we appreciate your comments and your concerns and your requests for us to comment on certain things. We have to pick and choose for a couple of reasons. One, there's a lot we don't know, and so we aren't going to spend your time and our time commenting on something where we really feel like we can't give much insight. And also, of course, there's some cases pending. Not that we have a lot of insight to those cases, but probably will resist commenting on those cases. And also, yes, we do have family filters. We aren't trying to protect family members from facts that are out there, but we are mindful of our opinions and our speculations and how they affect our relationship, ongoing relationships with family members, relationships which we hope to have the rest of our lives. So we will avoid commenting in some areas like that, and it's a game time decision. We just have to decide as we go. I'm sorry, those are subjective calls. I won't give you a list of what we won't comment on because we don't know at this point. But I will tell you, not all of our family members are happy as it is with us sharing what we share with you and bringing people from all over the world into some of our family stuff. We aren't going to stop doing that, but we will try to avoid speculations that may hurt someone and don't add any value to the conversation here, to value to you from hearing it from us. Second true confession I have for you, or the second obvious confession. Adam and I are inexperienced in the podcast world. We have a great technician. We have a very professional environment, unlike this recording, which is just a Zoom recording. I'm just glad I have at least a silver lining in my virtual background here. But we jumped into this podcast idea and we filmed the first 4 podcasts, and we've been encouraging you all along to give us your questions, give us your comments so they can shape our podcast. And then we went and released the first 4 1 week apart. Well, that means when we recorded those podcasts, we didn't have your questions yet and your comments. And so we can't start addressing them for a month down the road. Obviously, that's not good. So we are providing this resource. We're just calling it responses. Sometimes it's answers to questions, sometimes responses to comments. And it's for the short answers, the quick answers we can give you. The posts won't even be this long. They may be 1 or 2 minutes, maybe 3 or 4 minutes, depending on the topic or what we feel we have to offer. But we will post them here, same place you found this recording, same place you find our podcast, and they'll be cataloged and libraried so anyone can go back and see our response to any particular subject. The subject will be in the title and they'll be easy to find. Now, the responses that are longer in nature will probably just turn into one of the podcast topics. For example, just a couple days ago, we were filming this, just giving a response that turned out to be a long response. And so he said, we're going to make this a podcast topic. And I'll tell you what it was. Adam and I did not know that there is so much energy, so many questions around what happened from the time Charles sent his last text before he walked into the situation in which he got killed, between that time and 3 to 4 weeks later when Adam spoke with the Chandler police. We weren't paying attention to the social media during that time. We just missed it. We didn't know there's that much energy around it. And there are so many unanswered questions and still until we started getting your comments. And so we tried to answer that quickly. It's not a quick answer. So Adam is going to take a podcast and walk all the way through that time to hopefully provide answers to the questions, the very valid questions that y'all have been asking for that. That'll be podcast number 5. It's the next one we'll record. That's just one example of how your comments and input are going to shape what we do in the podcast and shape what we respond to here in these recorded responses. We're going to release these responses probably one a day or every couple of days until we get caught up, and then we'll just release them as they come up. But we want to thank you for all of the comments, including the detractors. Now, many of you were so good to us and have been so good, and the responses are so kind, so loving. It has really been part of our healing, and we thank you for that. Now, the detractors, we read those comments. They hurt, but we feel like we're on the same team. We don't want to discourage them, because anyone that is investing emotional energy in following this case, and it is emotional energy, is it not? If you're following this case, you want the same thing we want. We're all united in that. There's no one on the other side. There's not another side running around saying free Chad and Lori. So we all want justice for the victims, the dead victims and the living victims. So even those comments that are directed at us that aren't very nice, we feel that they still provide positive energy. We just hear them as, hey, I want justice for Tylee and JJ, and I don't trust your motives, or I don't like the way you're going about it. Okay, sorry we offended you, but thank you for being engaged in this cause with us. We feel we're on the same team, even if you don't feel that way. And even if we lose you when you aren't listening to our podcast, you don't read our book, please stay engaged in whatever resource, and there are many good resources. Stay engaged so you can get what you need and the healing that you need. We're doing this for healing and to provide healing. And from many comments, that is happening. I know it's happening for us, so thank you for that. But I want to give you one example of this. Joe Ryan's sister, Annie Cushing, has said things that aren't very complimentary of us, doesn't want to listen to what we're doing. She may or may not be listening to this. Let me state that feeling, that perspective is not reciprocated. We are very supportive of Annie's cause, of finding answers in the death of Joe Ryan. Was it related? Was he murdered? We don't know. but we want those answers too, and that's her cause. And so please support Annie and what she's doing in that cause. We are glad to support that, because once again, we feel we're on the same team. Well, thank you for listening. We hope this feature of responses helps you, and we'll look forward to talking to you in the podcast and in these responses.